Yeah, but kind of do like some sort of a wrap up.
Okay, that sounds good. That sounds good. And just, I guess you throw out things that's just been happening or whatever the case is.
Yeah, we can let the crowd drive it. The things that you've talked about with your circles and what I've talked about with my circles, and kind of wrapping things up. So I'm gonna tag you right now.
Okay.
I think that's what people need, especially after last night. We lost one of our stars last night.
Last night.
They're getting our stars, man.
Right, temporarily at least. You know what I'm saying? When you talking that heavy talking, that real life, the real life narrative, that's right. What you don't want. You know what I mean? They want you to talk along their mainstream narratives and stick within the box that they've created for, with politically correctness, I guess you could say. And that's how they're trying to lead our conversations. But we're just having breakthroughs after breakthroughs, it seems,
Yeah. And I think, I completely agree with that assessment. In terms of political correctness, like, I don't know. I guess I used to be on that boat. I used to agree with that. And now that I'm really starting to think, like, especially a lot of things Ty was talking about yesterday,
right?
Just in terms of how offense, it's necessary. Offense is a necessary thing in terms of it's somebody else that's reaching out to you and they're using extreme language or something extreme to try to share some emotion with you. And we can either jump in and fight with them, or we can stop and say, well, hang on, let's have a conversation. Why do you have this level of a hate? Why, or why are you using these words to try to get my attention and try to resolve the issue? And I think when these things happen, not enough people do it. I think a lot of people are still wise enough, probably what a lot of our elders taught in terms of trying to address problems, but very few people try to address the problems. They just jump on the tribe. They think they're supposed to be yelling and screaming this. They do that. The problem doesn't get resolved. And then the offense, because usually an offense, I don't know, I was trying to think about it today. I think it's not just words of offense. It also is like terrorism. Like every time I look at something, I see it from our level, our social level, but I try to apply it to like government and world events and what's happening. And it's the same thing. So do you attack the terrorist, or do you try to have a dialogue and figure out, well, wait a minute, why do you want to kill us? Why do you hate us? Do you really hate us for our freedom? And when these things blow up, do we stop and say, well, hang on, Roseanne, why would you use those words? What is it what problems do you have with this lady? Even if I like the lady. And then you go find out and realize that, well, this lady is behind a lot of the most hurtful things that are happening around the world. And that offense may be not the right way to approach it, but I think we have to always try to take a higher road. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Be bigger people in a way, or try to find, try not to get in the, how they say, like, low blowing somebody, or, stooping to the lower level, I guess you could say. We have to try to, create within us the ability not to be triggered, not to be reactionary, because that's what the psychology and how we were educated, and how the mainstream dialogue teaches us and educates us, is to be offended by some things that we should more or less seek to understand, or seek to understand the person and where these feelings, like you were saying, like where these feelings or thoughts or these viewpoints are actually coming from. Where do they develop from in the way that these people would talk so hateful, or would spew this hateful rhetoric, language, or whatever you have, and it could be the best way to get an understanding, or a small understanding, is to look around your immediate circles right now. Look around your family, look around your friends, and try to evaluate why they act in certain ways they act, and try to evaluate why they talk, maybe because, the mainstream is completely different from the I guess the immediate circle, like the smaller family circle. and the mainstream is two different environments. You know, in the family circle, you can say anything you want, and you can be free to say and speak exactly how you feel with inside, because you feel as though that your comfort zone is presented where your words won't have the same consequences as if you would say them at work. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm trying to say? So within the family structure, the family setting, people spew all types of hateful things and borderline racist or whatever the case they may, but we have to use these settings to evaluate why they feel such a way. You know, why they get we know why some of our family members get the anger they get, because, you know, we see it with our own eyes. We see the way they live. We see the things that they've gone through, and we've evaluated that ourselves. And, you know, more or less, like in my family circles, other family, is gossip. You know, we gossip about it. You know, we don't really break it down to where we're trying to. Some families do, and some people do. They try to understand what others are going through, like divorce, relationships, parenting, children. You know, we see this stuff on a daily basis in our own structures. But now when it comes to the mainstream structure, it changes, because we're putting on a representation of not necessarily who we exactly are. You know, so we're going along with the mainstream narrative, which is to say we should be politically correct, but in our own lives, we're not politically correct. You know what I'm saying? But we can break down and get understanding by evaluating our own structures and then evaluating the mainstream structures. Figure out why the mainstream is spewing this narratives that make us divided and hateful towards each other, and also figure out why I guess the standard of society now is to be offended by the things which we should be trying to get understanding and educate ourselves in people terms. I guess it's hard to break it down because it's a lot of psychology.
Yeah, I think you're on it. I think you're on it. And Teresa chimed in with saying, you know, there's no place for racism in the world, and a powerful truth, and it's very true. But the question like we started, the question I like to always ask myself is, but do the people who are fighting racism actually want to get rid of racism? Right? There are some people who love the fight, and they don't want it to go away. And it's not racism; it's just hate in general. I mean, there's all kinds of racism, right? It's not just race; it's religion, it's where you're born, it's all types of discriminatory things. And so discrimination exists. And this is why I think I want to, if we do a show, I want to call it something having to deal with the colony, because breaking people apart is a form of racism, right? You break people apart, you put them in different groups in fencing, and you give them this ideology, you give the other group that ideology, and the whole human farm is easier to farm because you have these discriminatory things that they have for each other, and you can control them better. And so, you know, I guess when I think about it, I think about, are the people who are fighting discrimination, do they have careers based on discrimination existing? Are they hired by the farm to hold the whip? Are they hired by the farm to milk the cows? Are they hired by the farm, you know, to have that mid-level management, and their business is directly related to that racism or discrimination actually existing? And what I find when I think about it, unfortunately, I see it in most leaders that they actually make a lot of money. They make careers and sell books off of these things that we need to get rid of. And so I think we need to look around the colonies at the real reasons, all the colonies, you know, why people want to fight over these things. We should be seeking to understand. Right? We should be seeking to understand and resolve. Racism, it didn't just pop out of nowhere. Discrimination, you aren't just born and boop, discrimination. It doesn't work that way. Somebody gave it to you, and it made sense to you because you had a certain level of scarcity or pain or something that made you want to embrace, because you're an intellectual. You're not stupid. There is no stupid racist person out there. Nobody's dumb. Everyone is an intellectual to a degree. They just have selective experiences that get them to do things and say things we view as stupid. And this is the spit I have for last night is, you know, instead of social media banning that and censoring that, I think we need to listen to everybody and all the pain that they have so we can try to resolve it. You know, where did it come from? So another thing that happened this week I was going to ask you about is, so Hillary wants to take over Facebook. When asked in that interview, Hillary wants to, she said, I think they asked her if she could be CEO of any company, who would it be? What's her next thing? How is she going to help the world, bring us all towards more peace, love, and happiness? And she said she'd love to be the CEO of Facebook. What's your thoughts on that?
Man, I had a deep laugh when I seen that. I laughed good. I laughed so good when I seen that. It was, I mean, I didn't even read the article. I didn't have to read anything about it or whatever. I just looked at the line. I said, this is the, because listen, there are really people who think that's a great idea. You understand? That is scary. There are people out there who think Hillary Clinton being a CEO of Facebook is a beautiful idea, and that would benefit people, especially in this era of where they've created the hate for Donald Trump and the assault on the minds of the woman, where they're making women think that they have to hate men in the all-time high or whatever the case you have. We have to distance ourselves as much as we can from the likes of Hillary Clinton and her allies, you know? And I don't get why people still view her as a figure of role model or whatever. She's like honestly a role model to a lot of women out there.
Yes, she is.
They're preaching her as a role model to young kids out there. Yes, and this is what's wrong with our society right now. We're allowing these corrupt and deceptive individuals to present themselves as champions of the people. And when it comes down to understanding, like you said, in the terms of political correctness, as far as we talk, we have to come to understanding is the way we think about who is our true representatives. You know what I'm saying? Because this lady, she does not, and she should not represent any woman out there in America at all. She should not represent any woman in the world. But women don't understand this. Women still believe the likes of mainstream media. Women still believe the likes of the politicians. And they feel as though Hillary Clinton is the champion of women. And it's like, where have our minds gone? Where has our logic gone as people? After we saw the evidence, you know, the evidence is out there. The Bill Clinton situation, the assault, or the way she talked down about the women who were the accusers of Bill Clinton. Now we see how Harvey Weinstein situation. If you talk down on the woman that accusing Harvey Weinstein, what is going to happen to you? You're going to get crucified by the same women that are championing the same Hillary Clinton that talked down about the individuals who came out and said Bill Clinton did these things to them. So we have I don't know if it's a failure to communicate, but we have a failure to understand how we're being trained to think. I don't know if it's illogical, but it's hypocrisy, contradictory, and it's just, I don't know if it's insanity, really. That's what you really call it. It's insanity because people are expecting change within this governmental framework, but they're not even changing their own minds yet. You know, they're not even changing how they think and evaluate. They're not even changing the outlets that they get their information from. They're not even changing the sources of, you know, truth. Or it's just, I don't know, it's just sad and it's scary what type of times we're in, you know, because if Hillary Clinton can even talk about becoming some type of leadership position in Facebook, and people are accepting that, and people are taking that in with belief or like in a good way, it's scary times, bro. Scary times.
Oh, it's scary times. It's scary times. It's big time scary times. But that's the reality. And you're right. The reality is there are millions of people who still look up to Hillary Clinton. Millions of people. Like we can pretend and we can sit around in our circles and we can say, you know, very simple things like, you're okay with killing people. You're not somebody I'm going to cheer in front of my children. Right. But the vast majority of people still don't do that. I think the vast majority of people are disconnected at all from politicians. They don't have anything to do with any of it. but you still have millions who, you're right, they're still embracing that indoctrination. You know, they get up in the morning, and it's not about the women who support Hillary Clinton. It's about the people who still support their indoctrination. That's what I think the bigger discussion is, because it's the same deal with Hillary running Facebook as with I forgot, Roseanne and her comments about the other lady. I mean, it's the same thing, because people say, okay, well, what are you? Okay, that's a woman, so I'm gonna get on that side. And I'm not gonna look at the qualities and the character of that woman, but that's a woman, I'm a woman, I'm gonna get on that side. And it's not the majority, but there's still a lot of people. And the same thing with, well, Roseanne said this to this person, and what's that person, and what they say, okay, I'm this black, whatever I am, I'm gonna get on that side. You know, I think the bigger discussion is people transitioning from being a child and given these indoctrinated ideologies, you know, the set of ideologies, because you were born in a certain body, and carrying that ignorance forward and supporting somebody you shouldn't support. I think it is probably one of the most dangerous things that we could ever do, is to allow more political influence on Facebook, on any social media. Social media platforms are extremely powerful. You know, I think they can pick presidents. They can decide the future of a world. They can decide how you think and what you think. You know, I think we're naive, though, if we think that hasn't already happened to some degree. I think that, you know, her comment there is just more of a openly accepting of the fact that the politicians realize how powerful these platforms are, and they seek to control them because they want to control your mind to win. And the more we can accept the reality that they are always trying to control us through our indoctrination, then we know the number one fight is to fight against, you know, the truth that they give us about, or the falsehoods about who they think we are, or who they think we should be.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And I just thought about another thing also. They're trying to fight to keep their control of the mainstream narrative. Because whatever the mainstream narrative, that's what's going to fall into the minds of the youth. So when it comes to this whole political landscape that we have now, and the divisive nature of it, and the confusing nature of it because of the too many sources of misguided information, I guess you could say, you know, fake news, whatever you want to call it. But people still don't even understand that, like, what's fake news, what's not fake news. You know what I mean? CNN, MSNBC, Fox News. I mean, we know this to be fake news in the way that they report things in a manner that is, you know, divisive in nature and rhetoric, you know, and people are talking about sources that are credible out there are really the ones that are fake news, because these mainstream news outlets have taken hostage to the term and, you know, created a diversion of what it truly means. And the mainstream viewer has believed them, you know. So now we're in a fight where it's the information that we're giving to our young, the information that is being passed down to our young, and as far as politics, as far as life, as far as just the social aspect of society in general, is being distorted in the mainstream narrative, because the outlets that they have are, you know, repetitively spewing these lies and these false narrative of events, you know, and this is what people have believed for decades, because people had no other outlet or no other source to get the information from. So now that they've relied on this for decades, it has come to the point where they really don't know where else to go. So the logic in their minds settles at, okay, well, I trusted and believed these outlets forever and ever and ever, and they really haven't shown to give me, people don't think they've gotten bad information from these sources, first of all. And they haven't never questioned these sources to understand that they've gotten bad information from them. So now it's to the point where it comes time to question these sources, but in their own mind, they're thinking they have nowhere else to go, so they're just going to rely on the same sources that they've been relying on forever, even though they know that in they see the shadiness, they see the corruption, they see the inconsistencies, and they just are. It's weird because they are stuck. They're stuck on, when we call people like to call them sheep or these different terms of things that they like to call each other, but it's really a point of when the mind is set on the I don't know if it's the psychologically embedded structure, but it's like the information that the system has as far as our minds and how they work and how the receiving of information gets set in after such a long time has dominated our ability to seek out the right information, or our ability to seek out the education that shows us how we've been manipulated, that shows us how we've been deceived, but we can't get there if we're still arguing and bickering and fighting over all the mainstream logic or the mainstream indoctrination, if you must, that has been created in our minds, because our minds are filled with it. You know what I mean? If we're talking about governmental things, it's American governmental things. It's not worldwide governmental things. If we're talking about people, as far as helping people, you have to talk about helping American people. You can't go beyond the borders because it's an American thing. You know what I mean? That's where we have to create a new narrative to where, how we're trying to say that it's make humanity great again, you know what I mean? Because it's about human beings. We have to work together to realize that we are all one family and we are all interconnected, but we first have to try to find a way to interconnect our real information, the things that we've experienced in our lives from the system, living in this system, dealing with this system, trying to operate around the system. Like people everywhere have an experience. You know what I'm saying? People everywhere have an experience. But the thing is, people are afraid to talk about that experience in the mainstream. People feel afraid to tell other people about these things and experiences that they dealt with, whether it be with the government, whether it be with other people. But this is what we need. We need to hear these things because these stories matter to the understanding of a mass of people. If we're only getting the story from the mainstream, we're only getting one version of events. We're only getting one side of the story. We're only getting one eyes. We're only getting one perspective. If we're getting the stories from different families of this person and that person and all these groups of people who dealt with so many different things, we're getting the true stories of what we've all experienced. You know what I mean? What we all dealt with. And then we connect that together and realize we have the solution right here within it. The solution is we have to communicate. We have to communicate in the way that is loving and understanding, Yeah.
The human experience. I love it. Somebody just said, should Black people support Hillary Clinton or something to that degree? I'm sorry, I didn't see who it was, but we're in a great time. We're in a dangerous time, but we are in a great time too. Because so you talk about that experience and all those experiences. I like to talk about poor white folk. I don't know if you noticed that. I like to talk about poor white folk because you know what? The thing that I've realized is the more I talk about poor white folk, the more poor white folk are willing to talk about poor Black folk. And when poor white folk are talking about poor Black folk and poor Mexican folk are talking about poor Chinese folk and poor Chinese folk are talking about poor Filipino folk and poor Filipino folk, when people start standing up for each other, the fences start to come down. And I think we're in a wonderful time. We're in a phenomenal time. And what's leading me down this thought process is what she just said, which is if you think that Hillary Clinton has anything positive for Black people or any poor people, you're nuts. You're not actually reading. You're not actually reading history. You're very disconnected from the laws that she gets behind. If you want to be a voice, in fact, this thing with Ty began because someone, I guess, felt that they were helping Black people by speaking up against the lady's comments, Roseanne's comments. And the reality is you're not helping poor Black people by adding to the dissent of fighting angry people and fighting to silence people who probably need to speak, people who've had an experience. And I don't even know Roseanne's background. I have no idea. I don't even watch the show. I don't know anything about it. She used to be funny a long time ago. I'm not even sure if she's funny now. But The old show she used to have was based on a poor white family. Right? And so maybe that's the perspective she has. I don't know. But when you're willing to listen to the other story and try to figure out what is the basis of her commentary, what is the basis of the commentary of people who grew up that way, not her necessarily, but the fact that there are people who support that, then they're trying to be heard. You know, we need to, I think a lot of us are smarter than this. This is what I think. I think a lot of us are smarter than this, but we don't necessarily have microphones. I think that all of us have friends who are extreme and they tote that indoctrination line. But when the angry one speaks up, we fall in line behind them, and we shouldn't do that. And the angry one, I think, is inexperienced too. And they are who they are. They grew up angry. They grew up in Black poverty, white poverty, the barrio, the ghetto, the trailer park, whatever you want to call it. And they became this angry person they should be, because I think that person is a flare to the rest of us. Like I was having this image in my head this morning, an analogy that, you know, offense and anger and hate, it's just a flare, right? Mm-hmm. Imagine we're doing a search and rescue over the ocean, and we're looking for a human being that's stranded out in this big ocean of crony capitalism, this big ocean of scarcity where people are just being subjugated to oppression from all races, all groups, all sections. And someone shoots up a flare. To me, that's what this offense is. To me, that's what hate is. To me, that's what all of this anger is someone saying, help me. Somebody is angry and somebody ties into that emotion and that passion and something personal when they're saying, help me. Now, they don't say help me. It comes out
the way that they know how.
Right. They only know one word to get you to say, to focus on the fact that they got some pain. And if, mind you, you got your own pain, you're going to respond back with your own anger and your own word. Mm-hmm. But if you were someone who doesn't, the world needs you. Humanity needs you. That person who shot up the flare and the fool that responds back with their own hate and anger, they need you to speak up and calm things down. They need you to speak up for de-escalating that and sitting down and having a dialogue and not getting emotional about it and saying, well, why would you say this? Why would you say such things? And where did you grow up? What type of pain did you grow up in an abusive family? Did you grow up in an abusive neighborhood? Did you grow up in something that's not easy to talk about? Right? A lot of people live in very impoverished conditions that they don't want to talk about because it's shameful to talk about poverty. It's shameful to speak on those things. Like, I go to thrift shops. You know, I go to thrift shops. I love thrift shops, man. I go to thrift shops. I love them.
There ain't nothing wrong with that. The thrift shops is some of the best places right now.
It is.
They got some gems, man. There's gems all up in there.
Listen, poor people won't go. They won't. I go to thrift shops. I grew up in an area. Where all the minorities, they drove Benzes and BMWs. Mm-hmm. That's where I grew up, in the outskirts of Washington, D.C. They wouldn't dare have their face being shown in the thrift shop. But I had my little grandma used to go to thrift shops all the time, you know. And so, but the funny thing is that people are scared. They're scared we shame poverty, but we don't shame wealth. We shame people who were born in the wrong spot, who never got a chance, but we cheer people who were born in a spot who never did a damn thing to earn anything. Speak on that, brother. You got something bubbling up. I can see it.
Why you do that? Why you do that for? That was it. You see,
I don't know what I did. Tell me what I did.
Poverty, but we don't shame wealth. This is what we champion in America. We say we care about poverty, but we shame poverty at the same time. We say, I care about the ones that are suffering. I care about the ones on the street. I care about that they don't have no food, that they can't get no clothes in this. I care, but yet I can't go to the thrift store. I won't be caught dead. You ain't going to thrifty. What you mean?
Wow.
Oh, wait a minute. Now don't get carried away here. I said I care. Isn't that enough? Caring is enough, right? But then it's like, I don't like these rich people. They got too much control. The 1% this, the 1% that. The 1% is all over the place. Oh my. But yet, we donning, we going shopping and putting money in the 1% pockets. But then we're saying, oh, wait, I did this little bit here for the poor people. I gave the poor people $5 yesterday. But you gave the rich man $500 today. What sense does it make? Where is
new TV?
You feel what I'm saying? And it's like,
wait,
hold on. How in the world is this logical? This is the people you're arguing with on a daily basis. Oh, you can't say this and that about this person. You better talk bad about Donald Trump because he's the problem. But you better love Hillary Clinton because she's our savior. You better love Bernie Sanders because he's our savior. You better love Barack Obama because he's our savior too. But we care about the poor people, don't you understand? Meanwhile, it's Saturday. Where I'm at, I'm in the mall shopping. I'm buying my kids I'm teaching my kids, look, get the $100 sneakers today. All right, I got enough money. We could spend a day. Let's get the $100 one. And it's like, I got to argue with my son about $25 sneakers. You feel me? Because I want him to understand, listen, it ain't all about what you see other kids with and what you see society telling you need to have, and this is what you have to live with. No, think, son. It's people that ain't got shit. It's kids that ain't got nothing. They can't get, because we made it that way. Do you see the stuff around you? This stuff around you is because other people ain't got nothing. Because we've accepted that they giving us this stuff around us. You know what I mean? The big buildings, the nice car. They've given us this stuff as distractions from just being humans. You feel me? That's what I realized. Instead of being humans, they said, take all this shit, love all this shit, and soak your souls in it. You know what I mean? That's what it's like your souls is soaking in this stuff, and you just can't escape it to realize that people are suffering around you. People are suffering in the world. You sending the kids to school to suffer, you know what I'm saying? And it's just going to cause more suffering on top of the fact that we're already suffering as grown people. People think they're adults. This is what it is. The society just throws words out there and it's like, oh, I'm an adult. I paid my bills. I did this. I did that. I'm an adult. I'm adulting. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do because I paid all this stuff and I can spend my money how I want. I'm adulting. But it's like, that's not being human. Adulting, you have to be human to be adulting. People are still child. It's 20, 30, 40, 50-year-old people that are still children in terms of humanity. Do you understand what I'm saying? They don't know what it means to be human because they've been educated in always American, European, or colony. The colony's been educating these people for years and years, and they think that's the way life should be. So now we're in a fight of what life is really supposed to be. It's like, we have to care about each other to the core. We can't just say it. We have to show it by our actions. You shouldn't be clowning the thrifties. You should be going to the thrifties. You know what I'm saying? You should be spending your money at the slums. You should be doing everything you can to spend your money in the slums. You shouldn't be spending your money at these 1% stores, at these corporations. You should be doing everything you can to get away from the banks. But people are like, no, we need the banks. We have to have the banks because the banks are where we need. No, if you want to get the money, get the cash and go to the slums. Raise the slums up.
Chris,
you know what I'm saying? It's like, damn, what happened?
But that's my Lord and Savior. Well, go. What's the name? Citigroup. My Lord and Savior, Citigroup. That's my Lord and Savior. Wells Fargo. That's my Lord and Savior.
TD because Capital, TD Bank, who else? Wells Fargo. No.
You put a word out there. I love it. It's a new word. I've seen the hashtag adulting. I love it. I love it. We've forgotten how to be adults. And I you know what? I always like to look at nature as examples. Like you look at the female lions who actually run the pride. You think the males run the pride? No, they don't. When they get tired of his old rusty butt, they throw him out. So, but the females run the lion pride, and their number one call in life as adult lions is to protect the next generation. Not the cubs that are speckled, not the cubs that are a little lighter, a little browner. They protect the entire pack, and all the females in that pack will die defending the young. And what they've somehow trained us in this colony to only focus on the white cub, black cubs poverty, Mexican cubs poverty, you know, and because we do that, they're ripping apart, they're eviscerating all the cubs and throughout the entire pack. I love the word adulting, because when you look at nature, every species on this planet seems to have more sentient, at least the mammals do, more sentience than what we do. You know, sentient, they focus on their young and their poverty, and they don't look at the color of their fur. They don't give a damn about that. They only care about making sure the next generation has it better than the next. And what you said was spot on, because you've got one side screaming, Donald Trump is taking on the deep state. He's going to make things better for the poor. He's going to make things better for the middle class, America. And he ain't doing none of that. You got the other side screaming, Hillary Clinton's going to do it for the poor. She's going to take care of the middle class. We're going to get this going, get some progress. You know, and she ain't doing none of that. And I think this is what's so scary to the politicians, the leaders who are all lying to all of the people who are naive, good people, intellectuals in their own right, but are driven by the media into spots of ignorance, into actions that don't demonstrate sentient behavior and support in supporting people who are murdering people all over the world and in these poor communities legislatively. Right. I think I love that hashtag adulting because it's offensive. It is offensive, and I love it. Offense is important. Offense is, again, it's that smoke flare. It's somebody saying help. And the kids are saying help, of all races, all over this world, in all countries. They are begging for some adulting to happen. They are begging for these adult-looking creatures to actually start acting like adults and taking more care of them and lining up more for them in their future than what they're lining up for their own.
Right. And it's so true. It's so true, because look, another thing that's happened is not only has, you know, society been told to forget about all the, you know, cubs, we've been educated to think that this government has historically sought to take care of all the cubs. We have been believing beyond the shadow, well, I wouldn't say beyond the shadow of a doubt, but we have been believing blindly, foolishly. I want to say, I hate saying sheep, but sheepishly, because
it's offensive, but it says what it needs to.
It's like, this is really what it is. The American government is the shepherd. That's what it is. You know how the shepherd is leading the sheep to where everywhere he goes, they go. And it's like mainstream media is also a shepherd in their own right, because everywhere they go, their viewers go. You know, and the conversations that they're having, they teach their viewers to have in the mainstream. So now when you're trying to talk about things that oppose their viewpoints is when the triggered and offensiveness comes into it. It's not about the facts. It's about opposition. I'm in opposition to what they're saying, so now they have to hate me. I'm in opposition to their love for Hillary Clinton. Now they have to feel that they have to hate me. It's not about what's the factual information about it all anymore. It's about, oh, you're not going to like the person that I like. Oh, there's nothing else for us to talk about. What else do we have to talk about if you're not going to agree that we both should? If you don't love Bernie Sanders, even though we all vote for the same issues, if you don't love Bernie Sanders anymore, there's nothing for us to talk about. How are we going to work together to get the solutions that we need if you're not going to love Bernie Sanders at the end of the day? Really, I can only mess with you a little bit. See, this is the trick. People are sneaky. People are crooked. We are taught to be so crooked, and it's foul.
Yeah, and embrace it.
Huh? What'd you say?
And embrace it and love it and raise kids to be crooked too.
Act like we don't embrace it, but we embrace it. So the Bernie Sanders situation is like this. If there's progressives out there in you were whatever you aligned with their thinking, and as far as we need to change the country, and is a lot of the issues that y'all all care about the same. We all care about the same issues: no war, healthcare, college free, all these other things free. We care about the same things. So after witnessing the same things that we've all witnessed, the corruption, the deception, the working against the people, the talking down on the people by government officials, all of them, people are offended if you say you're not going to take the Bernie Sanders train anymore. We can't work together to create the solutions that we all need because you're not going to say Bernie Sanders is the way that we go. So now I'm going to distance myself away from you, and we can only work but so much. We can only work a little bit. We can work a little bit, but we can't work a whole lot of it. That we need to really work a whole lot of it, but we can't work a whole lot of it because you said, "Oh, you don't let with Bernie Sanders no more. Bernie Sanders not the way. Oh well, I'm going this way.
We're not friends anymore.
You're toxic. You're toxic.
We can't talk anymore. But you know what?
But Chris, I'm unfriending you. I'm unfriending you. And it's like, yo, this is the only damn near connection we got across the national states and shit that we don't see each other every day. Our connection is through this airwaves and everything. But now you're unfriending me because I don't follow Bernie Sanders anymore. You're unfriending me because I don't want to be a progressive. You're unfriending me because I want to just be human and seek to help people that are in need of help. That's all I want to do. But you're unfriending me now because I said I want to be making humanity great again. You want to be making Bernie Sanders and progressives great again. I say I want to make all people great again. You say, you're going to work with, you said you're going to talk to conservatives? You're going to really talk to conservatives? Oh, no, we can't work with them. They're toxic. They're talking to the people that are, it's like, yo, how are we ever going to break free from the chains if we act as if we're children? This is not.
I got an idea. I got a question. I got an idea and a question for everyone. So I used to work in corporate America. I was there for 20 years before I realized that I was basically screwing my kids out of a future by trying to save up money for their future. I realized that money was the problem. These big corporations are the problem. But you know, there was one thing I noticed is that around the office, people love, like one of the hobbies in corporate America was to run down your spouse, right? That was a hobby. They get to work, man, brother. They get to work. Oh, my wife is this and she's horrible. She said this, get on my nerves, blah, 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 blah. Ha, ha, ha. She's stupid. We sit around, joking. Oh, she dumb. How dumb is she? She so dumb that she blah, 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 blah.
Right.
And the wife get there, but my husband is so stupid. He this. Right. And I'm just sitting here thinking about what you just said. They will unfriend you and block you for a politician they barely got half a picture with in the background. In the background, way back like this, Chris, way back like, and Bernie way up here.
Reach it.
They way up here, and they got a little selfie with him in the background. They are. It's my question. It's my question because we need psychologists to tell us what the hell is going on here. Because is this some form of mental illness that you would turn on somebody who loves you, your friend, another fellow, whatever you are, for a politician you never met, who will never call you, never text you back, didn't even look when you were taking a selfie on the stage. But you'll joke around and you'll destroy your spouse at work. You'll joke around, you'll berate him. It's funny. It's hilarious. You can offend my wife all you like.
All day long.
Offend my husband all you like. Send out some funny memes. Let's joke, ha, 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 about this person I love who had my children, who I had children with, who we're raising together. We want to grow old and die together as some slaves. But you will absolutely lose your mind if someone talks about your politician. Please tell me, because I get lost. Maybe I'm confused. Is that not some kind of hero worship? Is that not some kind of adult mental illness, hero worshiping sickness? And I'm not talking about you if that's you. I'm just trying to say maybe we need to start asking these questions as to where do our loyalties really lie? Do they really lie to this indoctrination and this political nonsense, which we know is all based in lies? Or does it really lie with the love we have in our hearts? Like, are we really that lost in a slave mind that we turn on a conservative, we turn on the liberals, we'll turn on these people who we have everything in common with, from top to bottom. The people we have nothing in common with on the tops of all these groups.
Yeah, man, it's amazing. You know, we've turned on understanding. That's what it is, you know, because the understanding of like community, being together, learning together, like evolving together was washed away. You know, they taught us to go to school and educate our children to learn individually, understand individually, and realize if the other people are slower than you are, if they're dumber than you are, this is an individual race, baby. Don't help them out. That's up to the this is, oh my God, this is the tricks. This shit is tricks. That's up to the teacher to help them out. Knowing damn well the teacher ain't got the time, the resources, the inner desire to help them out. But it's up to the teacher to help out. So now we're doing the same thing when it comes to people. Oh, this is the individual race. This is about my family. I got to make sure I see them over there. They suffering, they struggling, they dumbed down or whatever in the terms of education. They suffering. They ain't got what I got. They're way behind in this race. But it's not up to me to help them out.
No, it's not my job.
It's up to the government to help them out.
That's right.
The teacher, let the teacher help them out. Let the government help them out.
Yeah. And when the teacher ain't looking, I'm gonna kick him and take his lunch money. I'm not worried about the fact that he's on a crutch.
I'm gonna take advantage of him now. It's a capitalist world, baby. I'm gonna take. He dumb. Oh wait, I'm gonna take advantage of him too, man. That's what they told. That's what they teaching me to do. They teaching me to take advantage of people and use their lack of information, lack of education, lack of knowledge, lack of understanding against them. And that's what we're doing as families. We see either, like you said earlier, some families are born into wealth, and all they're doing is using the families that are not born into wealth, that are not born into this information. They're using that against them. So they're keeping the wealth because they know how to keep the wealth. They're also keeping the wealth because they have no desire to share the wealth with those people who are lacking, because they're taught to fear that the people who are lacking is in some way, shape, or form going to come and take the wealth of those people who had it. You know, so it's psychology on all different levels of it.
On all different levels, right? Well, the question, and that's a good question. Whose wealth is it anyway?
Whose wealth is it anyway?
Whose wealth is it anyway? You know, but the thing is, I also think about a lot of people starting to call me an anarchist now. I don't know why. We have all these labels for everything, and I don't really understand. You know, my stance with the whole anarchy debate is simply this: is that if a thing offends the human race, then that thing has to go. It may be that thing isn't evolved yet. It's not, the perfect model hasn't been created, maybe. But if a thing is killing human beings, if it's kicking the kid in the crutches and taking his lunch money, then that thing needs to go back in the box. And I'm not an anarchist. I am a person who says, you know what? If malaria is killing more people than anything else, we need to solve malaria. If government is the second biggest killer of people, then we need to resolve government. And it doesn't make someone an anarchist to say that. I think it makes you a human being to say we need to stand up for each other. We need to look out for each other. It's not about what race or what religion or what class or where that person was born. It's about, if this malaria government thing is murdering people for profit, if it's murdering people for entertainment, if it has a model that's based in death and destruction, that thing doesn't get to stay. That's just really what it comes down to. It does not get to stay, at least not in the model it is. Like, if you're a big believer in government, in this ruling mentality, this mentality that we have to be ruled, I'm not sure where I land on that spectrum anymore. But if you're a big believer that we need government, that we need something to give us rules and make us behave because we would misbehave if we're not, I would ask you to really think about, first of all, do you really want a ruling group because you don't trust you, or is it because you don't trust me? And is it because you don't trust me because you don't know me?
Right.
And the other question be, but you trust the rulers, do you know them?
That's a bomb. That's a bomb right there. That's a bomb. That was a bomb.
I'm not sure if it is, but I'm trying to get down to the bottom of it, because I'm not an anarchist, but I'm where we are today. The anarchy model actually is safer for human life and the impoverished people all across this planet than the current model we have today. And so I'm not saying go full-blown anarchy, but I'm saying for me, this is a time where I'm starting to listen to what these brothers and sisters have to say, because they're talking saving life. They're talking evolution. They're talking us getting better, not us staying where we are, continuing to get worse.
Right, right. This is the thing, though. Who told people that anarchy was bad? That's what you also got to remember. More or less, it came from outside of the government, and it's the trickle down effect. They control the media. We know this, so they control the narrative. Remember when Antifa came out? Oh, Antifa is this and Antifa is that, and it's like they distorted the meaning of what Antifa, anti-fascism, is, and they made it as if you were anti-fascist, you were a part of the group that was created Antifa in some way or shape or form. But anti-fascism went back a long time in opposition to governments as such. Now, when it comes down to the modern era of how, they label us with these terms that are just from an anti-governmental stance, it's to make people feel turned off when they see you or they hear things coming from it's to distort the message. They want to dampen the message. So how do you dampen the message? You attack its credibility. How do you attack its credibility? You label it. How does that attack its credibility? That label that you've given it, in the eyes of the mainstream, that label is negative. So in the eyes of the mainstream, they'll be turned off once approaching or once in contact with that message or those people who are spreading this message. That's why anarchy seems like a bad thing in modern times. You know what I'm saying? Because the government and its institutions of politicians, media, people, the narrative in their minds is to be turned off by these folks instead of listening to the message, which is more involved with humanity, love, than what they're telling you to be involved in when you support the two-party system or the current structure of the government that we have now. Because it's not actually a two-party system. It's actually a one-party government that is a corporation running in operation and acting like a government, I guess you could say, but we don't have the proper information to, share with the masses, or we do have the proper information to share with the masses, but the proper outlets that are mainstream enough to actually break the core of what we're dealing with when it comes to the psychology of the brain. The psychology of the brain is so deep and how it's embedded in us and how we think now, but to get to the core, or to at least put a crack in that core, you have to repeat this stuff over and over and over again. And it's sad when you say this, because that's what's been done to make the majority think as such as they do now. So when it comes to hero worship, that's what they've been taught to do their whole lives. Whether it be this president, we've been taught to worship presidents. From the most
Superman,
people have been taught to worship presidents. If your president doesn't win, it's all right. Wait till next time and fight hard to make sure your president, your hero, or the hero you're told to be, the hero you're told to have, because we don't really get a choice. Because if we had really a choice, we'd go into inner cities of our homes and communities and pick the most honorable people that we know. Really, I mean, that if we really had choice, we would pick the most honorable people that we know within our families and our communities, or whatever the case is, to really represent who we are. If we really had choice, but you don't have a choice, or in some instances,
I have a hero. And I'm glad you went there. I have a hero. Well, right, because we're always taught to pick our Superman, and that our Superman has to have $1 billion. If they're not wealthy, because we have this whole psychology of worshiping wealth and worshiping money, then they can't be a superhero. One of the superheroes I have is what do they call him? The Malian Spider-Man. Did you hear about this? This was in Paris, where there was a little baby that was was hanging off of a banister, and this is one of the immigrants that they didn't like being in their country at all. You know, trying to get the police to shut down on them. And this young 22-year-old Mali young man ran up, jumped up on this sharp fence, climbed to the top. He did Spider-Man. He jumped from balcony to balcony to balcony, climbed up 4 floors, grabbed the baby, and saved this toddler that was hanging on the edge of the banister because the father just left it and went to work. I mean, I went to the grocery store or something. So that's a hero to me. To me, what I see more wisdom and more love in impoverished communities and in the homeless than I do anywhere else. More than I think we need to start picking our heroes from that group. I think about what you said in terms of Antifa and control. You know, it seems that anytime something good comes out, they take it and they use it for evil. They corrupt it or they make it foul. Like Facebook, as an example, we started talking about Hillary Clinton becoming the CEO of Facebook, if that ever happens. But one of the reasons I love Facebook is because it's doing what we're talking about. It's letting me see people I don't know. It's letting me see their life. It's letting me see their kids. It's letting me see their kids laughing and playing, and they turn the live camera on. I can see them playing soccer. I didn't grow up in that community. I don't know those people, but it's exposing their humanity to me. It's exposing the humanity of their children to me. And this is why I'm telling people, if you look at your friends list and you see that most of your friends look like you, they're your religion, they came from where you came from, they're in your political party, they believe your ideologies. It is a good indicator of your ignorance. It's a good indicator. You went to high school with them? You went to high school with them? I mean, it's not a negative ignorance. It's just a not knowing ignorance. If you don't know the humanity of all the people across all political spectrums and all sides, that they're all intelligent people, they all have brains like you do, they've all gone through an experience, and their kids all have to live in the results of all of our bad ideas. Yes, indeed. Then you need to change that. My thoughts on this whole Clinton thing is that, no, we need Facebook to remain agnostic to everything, because Facebook can be, and it's not Facebook, it's social media in general. Without the influence of any groups or ideologies, like I think a lot of people say Facebook is liberal or something. I don't know, but you know that they ban right posts or something. Now, all that's possible. But if you oppress people, if you shut them up, if you censor them, you don't let them speak, and the other side can't see their humanity. When you make an animal out of a person, you can definitely oppress them, and you make the problem worse. So my biggest critique of social media right now, and this whole idea of a politician getting involved in Facebook, to me, it is insanity. It is insanity to take away another group's humanity and to push the right, or it's the left, I don't know who it is, into a zone of their own where we can't see that humanity. So we need Facebook and these social media sites, and we need people who get this, people who aren't angry, people who weren't raised in abject poverty and have that warrior gene going where they want to feel they got to fight somebody all the time. We need you to use social media to expose your ignorant group, the other people, the other side. Like, it's not a thing of being mad at somebody who's offensive and someone who has that hate. It's a thing of dialoguing with them and understanding why they have it. And then you taking the microphone because you have a little more wisdom. You weren't raised the way they were, where we can bring some sense of humanity and adulting. Yes. You know, back to these communities. Brother, this is what I believe. I think Facebook could change the world. I think it could. I think it could save the world just by exposing everybody to everybody else. Facebook can extinct ignorance if they want it to.
If used right. See, this is what I realized. We've had technology at our grasp, but we haven't, like you've been saying, the understanding behind it. Not many of us has understood the true implications of technology. We have been connected by Facebook to the world. To the world. Like all this corner, that corner, whatever, you know, we've been connected to the world. Now, I'm not going to say that all these countries that have Facebook connections are like, secure in a way that we can trust exactly who we're talking to, but I'm sure that we can have the understanding behind knowing how to know who we're talking to, or knowing how to find out that we're talking to somebody real or somebody fake, and this connection is bountiful in the way that we can create a narrative throughout the mainstream of the world in which we're trying to talk about the need to make people think from a humanity standpoint first, and to make people more connected and loved, and trying to embrace the fact that, yes, we are different, but we are more in common. We have more in common, much more in common than what the governments and what the medias around the world are trying to tell us. And what the religions may be trying to, make us to embrace, because that's what we have is like Christianity, your Catholicism, you're told to hate Islam and Hinduism and this and that, Buddhism, don't be this, but we have to embrace one another without that initial need to label, the initial need to say, oh, I know this person is because they said X, Y, Z, so he's a God person or this and that. We have to embrace people from knowing that, okay, if he's spitting that religious stuff, that means he was educated in this way or that way, but you can see through that because you know how that education does a person's mind, as well as the racism and what they call racism today. What racism does to a person's mind if they're bred and raised in that, because no one's born racist, no one's born hateful as such, but they're raised and they're baked in that. But if you understand it, you can see through it and look, he just needs help. Like you said earlier, it's the flare. He shot a flare. They need our help. They don't need, this is the thing that people got messed up. They don't need our hate.
No.
They don't need our hate. They need our help. They need our love. Yes. They need us we need to, you don't shoot back at that with more hate. Oh, these motherfuckers, she said, Roseanne said, oh, I hate Roseanne, we're going to go crazy. Let's launch an assault on Roseanne, everybody. Boom, boom, boom. Now we're shooting our shots back. Oh, I got stuff. See, this shows you the hate that is residing in us, or not all of us, but people. The hate that is residing within them, things that trigger them, it makes it easy to pop shots back of hate. I got all this hate ready to go. Bang, bang, bang. So Roseanne took millions and millions of shots. All she took was one shot. Think about how messed up that is, when basically it shows that what one woman says affects the minds of people more than those in the impoverished communities. Because they got the energy of hate that they use for that situation could have been energy of love that had been used to communicate with people of different walks of life, from different backgrounds, from different aspects, in a way that you can figure out, wait, why would Roseanne feel the need to maybe say that? Why would you think about her talking like that? And do you maybe feel as though it's right or whatever, but not talking to where you're trying to shoot hate back, but where you're trying to understand and love. So that way you can say like, yo, Roseanne, she just a little off, but it's a lot of people. I'm off too. I'm off. My family, because if you think about it, that's a lot of people's family right there. Roseanne is a lot of people's family members that they love and they cherish to death. That's your family members right there. Black and white, not just white people, black people too. Black people, some of the most racist people behind in closed doors. And it's like, come on, man. Let's be real. It's hate. That's all it is hate.
That's all it is. That's all it is. And you said something too that I think we got to swallow. You said, and you corrected yourself. I hope you didn't correct. I was hoping you wouldn't correct yourself. You said people versus us, right? Some people got that hate, and then you said something. You said
I said no, not all people.
Some people. No, it's all people. It's all people. It's all people. Let me tell you why I think it's all people. We are a collective. Mm-hmm. No matter how much we want to separate ourselves out and say it's the others, we are a collective. We all sink or swim together. All of our children are either going to do well or not do well together. That 0.01% with that $1 billion in the bank and up, they are all together. Every last one of them. They can fight, discuss, and laugh and whatever, but they always end up back on the golf course or in the yacht together. It's our children. We are all together. And this is why I'm saying that those of us who have, I don't say the word wisdom, but those of us who aren't triggered, maybe it's the right word, triggered by certain situations need to speak louder than those who do get triggered. Those who get emotionally triggered, they have to be, you can't get in line behind them. You can't cheer them. You can't go along with it. You can't share it. You're the one who needs to step up in opposition and say, whoa, calm down, calm down. Right. Let's think about this situation a little bit. Before we take this and let it blow up into something it isn't, let's do this. It's like when we were kids, Chris. When we were kids, if a fight broke out in the high school or the middle school or whatever, the teacher never came. In fact, we were smart enough as kids, Chris. If we had to fight, we wait till we got on the bus. We got away from the adults. The bus dropped us off. We all got off on the same bus stop.
Got the bus stop. And go down right there.
The bus driver knew. The bus driver knew. They was
going to
bus driver didn't care.
I'm driving up. And then you see the bus go right down. Boop, 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 boop.
They're paying him $6 an hour. He could care less. She could care. They drive the bus right off. See 22 kids get off on the same bus stop so they can fight. But so when that happened though, is everyone would stand around and the kids would fight. They'd start fighting and beating each other up. We would only let it go so far.
Right.
Even as kids, we would let you throw blows back and forth. No knives, no guns, no sticks, nothing done like that. And after, okay, you made your point, you beat the guy up.
Right.
You pull your friends off. Everybody would jump in and say, all right, that's enough. Stop.
Right.
Even as kids, we were smart enough not to let a situation blow up and get way out of control. I think we need to go back to being as wise as we were when we were children. I think we need to go back to being as wise as we were when these fights happen on social media and these fights happen in the news. Okay, let people make their points. Listen to the points. Okay, that's enough. Now it's personal. Now people are going to start to get hurt. Like you said, now we're allocating resource, energy, and time for a fight that shouldn't be happening, that resource, energy, and time can be utilized to either solve the problem that started the fight or work on another problem that's a higher priority. We need to go back to being as wise as we were when we were in grade school, I think.
And that, brother, is where the downfall of technology comes in. Because technology is good and technology is bad. Because nowadays, the kids is videotaping the other kids getting them beat to a pulp. Yes, and the other kids, their friends ain't trying to break it up no more. They're like,
he ain't done yet. Stop.
Yo,
he ain't done.
Y'all, Instagram live. I got this one.
World star. People. Don't stop them. They're liking it. Don't stop them. And the parents are probably right behind them. Oh, I got it too. I got it, baby. It's 400 people on mine watching.
Crazy.
What happened?
They've made it to where the sensation that comes from this stuff. We have a desire for the sensation of these things. We didn't. If we had the logic back in the day, we had the logic to get in and step in when it got too out of hand, because we still cared, I think, about each other. We cared about one another. Even if we didn't act like we cared about the ones that were in the fight on the opposite side, we cared enough to make sure, like, look, all right, you trashed them, you won, get off of them. Don't kill them, though. You know what I mean? Don't beat them don't make it too bad to do bad, But it was a little bit more respect back then. That's what I realized. Even though we may have had our differences, and a lot of it came from our families, and they're not teaching us to understand those of a different culture or those of a different background, because if we were taught to understand more, we would embrace them more. And today you would see us embracing Mexicans, Asians, Puerto Rico. We would be embracing all races, Islam, whatever walks of life, we would be embracing it. But we were told,
because I think you hit it. I think you hit it. You helped me solve a lot of stuff. I think you hit it. We knew both kids who were fighting. We had math with one. We had English with the other. We had PE with one of them. We knew both of them. And even if we didn't like one of them, we still had that basic level respect because we knew them. We knew their mother, their father. We knew their little sister. We had a familiarity with them. And this gets us back to Facebook, social media, and adulting. And division. when you don't see the humanity, you're not as interested in stopping the fight because you don't care as much. So as kids, we knew Bobby and Mike, and we didn't like Mike, but we still didn't want Mike to get it too bad. We knew his little sister. We knew his family. We still play PE together. We in the gym. Right. And as an adult, you have to look at it, I think, in that way. Like, yeah, you know what? I really don't like the conservatives all that much. I don't agree with their message, but they're still people. They still put their pants on one leg at a time. I don't really like the liberals that much, but they're still people. I got a lot of friends who are liberal. If we've got some sort of social media apartheid happening. People who don't like apartheid, who speak against it, they have their own sort of apartheid that's happening in the real world that they do. And for some reason, every time I look at ill that we have psychologically, it always seems that we, or that the government has, it applies on their level and our level, right? Apartheid is bad for them when they do it, but it's okay when I do it on social media in my life. It's bad for government not to look at the other side. It's okay when I do it. It's bad for government to not look at that flare in that community that's sending up that help request. Yeah. You know, but it's okay for me to look at it the same way as a fence and fight against it, as opposed to look at it for the request that it is. But I think you hit it. There's a familiarity that we don't have because the left tells the right, to the left tells the left, don't talk to the right. The right tells the right, don't talk to the left. And that's why the whole world is falling apart right now. And people call me an anarchist because I think we need to pull this government thing back. I think it's gone too far. I think that we gave this government thing restraint, right? Through Constitution, Bill of Rights, whatever. And our peaceful society is based on that government thing, honoring that restraint. And we live in a time now, they're not honoring the restraint. They've stepped over the bounds on all rights in all corners against our Constitution everywhere. And it's accepted because people are divided up. And well, I don't use that right, so I'm okay with, them taking it, but they don't realize the other side, they take a right to try to get their right back. And so it's a win-win scenario for both sides' leadership who work for the same corporations in taking away everybody's rights. But they do it for what you just said. Right. It's a lack of respect and familiarity to stop the fight.
And just like you said earlier, it's like, it's not okay for government to go bomb and war with other countries, but it's okay for me to bomb and war with my neighbors with words and logic or blah, blah. You know what I mean? This is what it's like. It's like you're saying that we as a country need to be united with other countries, but then you as an individual are not ready to be united with your brothers and sisters of a different labeling background, if you must. And it's kind of funny that we are associated with a lot of these people, but it's kind of hard to, not convince them, but it's kind of hard to talk to them about it because, again, they get so offended easily, So when you tell them, like, look, what you've been championing and following is wrong, and you need to maybe take a different approach. But, everybody has a different way of talking to people, and everybody should understand that you should utilize your communication in terms of who you're dealing with. You shouldn't deal with people in all the same ways, I guess you would say. You should deal with people in terms of how you understand them. Your understanding of these people as don't act like you might understand white people if you never really talked and dealt with white people that were rich, or if you never really talked to poor white people. Don't act like you know what poor white people are going through. Don't act like you know what black people are going through, rich or poor black people, and black people in general. If you never really talked and associated with black people, we have to really talk and get a grasp of what these people have dealt with outside of what mainstream has talked about, outside of what Hollywood has told us, outside of what the local news channel has put on the news to make you think. Even social media, even with social media makes you think. Get outside of those zones that have put your mind in the box. Okay, that box is the information that they want you to consume only. Outside that box is an abundance of information that we all need to consume about each other, so we have the proper understanding of who we're talking to. And we have the proper way, we know the proper way how to embrace these people. Because you can embrace everybody the same as far as lovingly or whatever the case is and how you act, but you have to understand how people act as well, or how they think, or what created the way that they think, or what environment were they around when they developed that way that they think. You have to analyze everything. This is what, like, it's like artificial intelligence. You have to use the information. And when artificial intelligence, I'm stuttering. When the artificial intelligence gets bad information, it makes bad judgments. Okay, this is just simple logic. You know what I mean? When we get bad information, we make bad judgments. We have to seek out the right information. We have to seek out the true information of who people are, so that way we can process this information outside of the misinformation we have received more or less our entire lives, because everybody is a part of that hate train. You know, everybody has sucked in and consumed some of the hate because it's all around us. It's the money in your pocket is a part of the hate. This phone is a part of the hate. You know what I mean? Because the people that made the phone weren't getting paid shit. They were getting paid slave wages. You know what I'm saying? But we didn't care about it because we were too busy being distracted by what was being presented to us, or what was the education that we were being taught to focus on instead. Don't worry about the shipping overseas of warehouse and industrial technology jobs to make these phones a real life thing for you. Don't worry that these phones were made with dirt cheap labor. Just know that you're going to support the rich guys on the back end by paying $1,000 for it. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, wait a minute, but we care about the poor people, but yet you'll stand in line and say, I got to get the new iPhone. I got to have, what do you mean? I earned it. No, I earned it. I worked hard for this. I'm a faithful activist. And it's like, but you got to get the new iPhone, right? And you're come on. I mean, we're fooling ourselves. We're fooling ourselves daily. And it's like, we all have to reevaluate how we're acting, and we all have to reevaluate how we're communicating with other people, and the lack of how we're not communicating with other people. That's all it is.
Yeah, it's that mirror. It's that mirror. I'm sitting here thinking about it. So, right, instead of focusing on whether or not you call this person an ape, what's happening in the countries where these cell phones are coming from? Mm-hmm. You want to get the cell phone. You know how my son tricked me into getting them. My oldest son, bastard, love him to death.
Got you.
He's slick. He knew how to get me.
They good.
He got on the bus. He said, Daddy, he said, when am I going to get my iPhone? I said, what you mean get your iPhone? I think he was like a preteen or something at the time. I said, what do you mean iPhone? When I was your age, I didn't have a Walkman. He said, well, Daddy, he said, everybody on the bus has one.
Right.
I said, what?
Right.
All the other kids have it. I said, what do you mean? All the kids on your bus going to school, they all got an iPhone. He said, yeah, Daddy, they all got it. I'm the only one that doesn't have an iPhone on the bus. And of course, I bought him the iPhone. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But this is a part of our own little indoctrination. And as a community, we're destroying our world, right? We don't stop to think about, okay, so I stayed away from the comment because that'll get the whole video deleted and everything else. Poor Ty. Instead of thinking about, oh, this person called her an ape. Am I doing anything supporting treating other people in other countries like apes?
Right.
That mirror, the mirror that people don't want to look into. Am I buying these small electronics that are all built on slave labor and forced labor? Am I propping up the things because I want my son to have an iPhone so he can be on the bus?
He can't be left out.
So he can film the fight. And who am I to judge somebody who's making this seemingly racist comment, and I'm backing the core of racism and slavery and forced labor in other countries. That mirror hurts. People don't want to look in that mirror.
They don't look at it. Nope, they don't.
But this is why I always go back to the same thing with colonization. These colonizers took over the whole world, and they spread this model of greed and oppression on all people, on all races. And we want to be selective in what parts of the colonizers we fight, who they were, what they look like. But we're all some colonizers in that way. We all have these psychological mind screws that they've given us on this model of greed. They've destroyed all of our indigenous ways. I mean, we all come from tribes. All come from tribes. If anybody actually thinks that when you look in your mirror and you think when they say colonizer, they're talking about me. No, actually had a culture. You had a culture before this massive destruction of the earth on this mindset of death and destruction and stealing what other people have and killing them is a good idea. We all had those old wise ways where we got along and we had more of a respect for each other because I think we had those commonalities. The whole world was trying to kill us. You know, the animals, we were food to them. We're not food anymore for the most part. Every now and except for the brother that jumps in the tiger cage or goes to the zoo and jumps in the lion cage. We're not food for them.
We're not food anymore.
And so we have a different predator now. We have a different predator. You know, are we not being preyed upon by governments? Are we not being preyed upon because in the mirror, we're okay with ripping apart, with someone else getting ripped apart financially, physically, their country that we wouldn't want in our own? Like, are we okay with the viciousness of that evolved violence? Like that evolved violence that we used to have, that we still have, it was modified, I think, into more of a financial violence, where we're okay if it's somebody else living in poverty, but we don't want that. We don't want that for our kids. We're willing to prop up a system that requires the vast majority of the human race living in impoverished settings to make sure that my baby doesn't, that my baby goes and gets college. You mentioned one thing, you mentioned education. I don't want anyone to get lost on it, because sometimes when you mention free college, they jump up and say, oh, well, that's the left. That's something that the left wants. We can't afford it. We don't need our taxes to go up. We need to think about solving problems together as a community, right? When you think about education, education is good for everybody. Right? Not indoctrination. I think our education, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that our education system is perfect. We got a lot of problems. We got to give the teachers more power and less the politicians. But what I'm saying is that we want the poor kids everywhere educated. You never know when that poor little kid growing up in the Appalachian Mountains without a little chemistry set to play with, he might be the one who makes the next thing that saves all of our lives. You never know if that little kid in the ghetto needs that little robotic set. He's the next one to automate everything and make it possible for, you know, we have Nikola Teslas and Einsteins and impoverished communities. He might be the next one if he just had a little food and water and didn't die of starvation to jump on the building, climb up and do the Spider-Man thing and save somebody's life. We don't know who we're allowing to die. So when we talk about things like free education and looking out for everybody, to me, there are very simple answers to those discussion conflicts. Don't get lost in the talking point of free education. Get lost in the reality that when all kids are given what they need to expand their minds, that the whole planet does better. We can talk about how it's paid for down the road, but like swallow the concept that if every child in every trailer park, every ghetto, every barrio, every Gaza, if these kids actually had the ability, the right at birth to have the highest level of education, imagine where our world would be in 100 years. And I think anybody with an intellectual head on their shoulders, which is everybody, if they really thought about it, they know that that's what they want for all of our kids' future. So you don't have a fight with the person who says that. You have a discussion. a dialogue with, well, okay, it makes sense that we do this, but how do we pay for it? Bernie Sanders seems a little crazy to me with that idea, but how can we actually pay for it in a way that doesn't take the money out of my pocket because I don't have any more money in my pocket? It's a discussion. It's not a fighting point. You know, it's an entry level to solving a problem.
Right, right. Given time for us actually, you know, think about it in a way that is free from divisiveness and hate, that we can come to some proper solutions. Because like you said, which is real important, think about all the millions and millions of kids and adults that were raised and died without the ability to, you know, be in the midst of this, you know, maybe technology, information, education that could have allowed them to be innovative in the mind, to discover or create some of the things that we need in production today. You know, we have to give ourselves an ability to, you know, I don't want to say have leverage, but have bargaining power. Because where we're going in the future, we're going to need bargaining power against the government, against the institutions and corporations that are aligned with the government, because they have all the bargaining power as it stands right now with the world. But in the face of our government, which is claiming to be a two-party system, which is really a one-party system, which is trying to work with other countries around the globe to create a one world government, where do we stand as far as leverage and bargaining power? We aren't the producers of anything. We don't have anything in mass production. We don't own the rights and patents to things that are in mass production. We've given that away to the corporations of America and United States. We as people need to become producers. We need to educate our children to be innovative, to produce things that we can utilize for the sake of us, not for the sake, I mean, not us like as far as just Americans, I mean us as far as all people around the globe or around the world. But we have to first start communicating like that. We have to first start communicating in the way that we can, you know, think like, wait, I have connections that you might not have, and you have connections that I might not have. But if we're connected together, we can use all those connections to benefit our structurization of gaining that bargaining power, gaining that leverage together. We can teach our children in the way that they can be innovative to produce things such as this, because there is still a ton of innovation out there, people. The phones are not the only thing that is the next innovative wave of the future. There is still innovation that is to be sought after out there, but we're distracted by the things that they have given us that said that this is the best that you can do. The phones and the computers, that's the best you can do. Leave it up to the scientists. Leave it up to the mathematicians. Leave it up to the this type of intelligent guy, the data scientists. No, the innovation is still out there. We can learn and teach our young. We can still teach ourselves to be innovative in the way that we can produce things. We can create things. We can utilize each other. We can utilize our resources. We have to utilize the communication, number one, because if we're not communicating like this, we're not thinking like this. I'm thinking every day, like, look, I'm telling my people, like, look, let's be innovative. Let's create something. Let's work on something. Let's try to produce something that's not like, you know, aligning with just being capitalist or with the government. I'm trying to get international, you know, because this is the international fight and we're so far behind. Think about how far we're behind in the international battle as far as coming together as just people with a common cause to alleviate the suffering around the world.
Right. That's terrorism.
You know,
that's you. When you start talking about one human race, that's terrorism. To all the systems you just described, government getting together with business, in which I think government used to get together with business. I think the current model is business buys government.
Yeah, business buys.
So now they're buying a world level government. They have all the say, and so we are at a very dangerous time, right? So something that you said also led me back to the fight. I don't know why it led me back to the fight. But back to the fight, that it's not a physical fight necessarily, but most times it's a financial fight. Sister Jeannie just said, how about the unsaid amounts of financial abuse and domestic abuse? It is a mindset of the domestic abuser to impoverish the person they're abusing, right? Like, this is why the man never wanted his wife to work. Yeah. This is why even now a lot of the reverse abuse where you have women who abuse their husbands. They don't want that husband to work. They want to control the money. If you control the money, you control the person because you control that survival. It's a psychological thing of being okay with not necessarily domestic abuse, but national abuse. Because this is what we do on the national level. We are abusers. We abuse and beat up countries the same way an abusive husband does.
Yeah, right? It's trickle down.
And we we criticize the abusive husband,
but don't say nothing about the government.
Doing. We criticize them for what we're doing at the political party level and the national level to other people around the world because we're not viewing them as human beings as well. And so this is why, like I said, I always like to look at the hypocrisy in it because we're all hypocrites. We're all hypocrites. We're all hypocrites because we're raised to be hypocrites. We are indoctrinated to be hypocrites. And so I always try to look for my hypocrisy. And I think the things that you're talking about are highly dangerous to the power structures that be because they make most of their wealth and power in getting people to divide up and pretend that another group isn't human. The same way the man beating up his wife doesn't look at his wife as though she's human. We got to get out of these abusive mentalities that we have.
Yeah, or it's fear. It's fear also. Fear makes you think that you can do better. Fear makes you think that there's going to be struggles, too many sacrifices to the right solutions. Fear makes you think that you can't triumph, and people feel like we can't triumph over government. They're too powerful. They're everywhere. Do you know what the military is going to do to us? Do you know what the police is going to do? People are afraid. They're afraid to speak out because they're afraid of government. That's what it really comes down to. So they feel as though they have to rely on government institutions to change things around. They have to find a way to change the Democrats. They have to find a way to change the Republicans because they're afraid. They're afraid of taking things into their own hands and, stepping out of their comfort zones and just being committed to stand firm to what they're talking about or what they say they care about. Not saying that I'm going to rely on the teacher to help the student next to me that is suffering or that can't get it. I'm going to help them myself. I'm going to take the ball into my hands and I'm going to dribble it down there to help that person. I'm going to make the assist. I'm going to take the shot myself. I'm not going to wait. And, we have to take the initiative. That's what we have to do. I've realized that people have been talking about this stuff for years now. Some people have been talking about it for decades, but some people have been working on changing the narrative, and that's what we all seemingly have to do. We don't have to just talk about changing the narrative. It's good when we talk about it because we need people to bring the voice of reason. I guess you could say it's a lot of us that are maybe voices of reason, but we have to act behind it as well. And the hypocrisy comes, like you said, when you say, oh, I champion this cause and that cause, I'm standing for women, but then you're supporting the government that stands against women because it shows that it's treated women unequal since the really bringing about a government. For the whole length of government, they have treated women unequal. But yet we have a massive woman who's screaming, I stand for women. I'm women's rights and this and that. But the government doesn't stand for women's rights. You know that. You've seen that. It's the history behind that. Oh, I stand with black people. The government doesn't stand with black people. You know that. You've seen that. There's the history behind that. Oh, I stand for all people. The government doesn't stand for all people. You know that. You've seen that. There's the history behind that. People don't know history. They only know selective history. They only know selective American history. Think about how scary that is. The great depth of history internationally, people only know the selective American history. They don't even know the depth of American history that there is. They only know the selectiveness of what they choose to pick and, pick at. They only pick at certain parts of American history that suits their ideology. They haven't even looked at the scope of what's really been going on, but yet they say they care about all people. They don't even understand their own sheepishness, But we have to create the environments to where we're communicating in love. So that way, when people approach us or when people come to the threads or whatever, they see love and not divisiveness and hate. Even when it's, the ones that are offended, they come speaking as if they hate what we're talking about. No, speak with love to them. But like, look, come through, get you some learning, get you some information. We're not here to hate you. We're here to help you. We see that's because, like you said, Roseanne and the flare, those people are coming, shooting the flare. They need help too. They're asking for help. We need to help them in communicating in the way that these issues can be resolved in a less divisive manner, as thus we've seen for the last few years, but in the understanding manner when we're talking taking time to process what people have gone through, what they're going through now, and what we can create that we don't go through this in the future, or our children don't go, because believe it or not, our children are going to go through this worse than we have. Because what our parents, think about what our parents went through. Our parents bought into this whole bullshit. They got scammed. Our parents got, I'm talking, bro, our parents got scammed bad. All across these lands. All the parents across these lands got scammed.
But they didn't have the internet. They didn't have the internet. I'm gonna make an excuse.
Oh yeah, they ain't had the internet. You know
they didn't have the internet. They had no idea they were being scammed. They had no way of even finding out that they were being scammed.
That is it. G. They had no idea. You know, we have an idea though.
We have an idea.
What are we doing? We have what our parents didn't have. What our great grandparents did. We have it.
Well, Brother Jim just said it. Brother Jim just said it.
Wow.
It's because the corporations and obviously their greed model sucked humanity out of us. That's what it is. They sucked out. We have the information. Most of us know better, but we don't do better because we're fearful. Somebody else said fear, talking about fear, because we're scared. We're scared to act on humanity. We're scared. We feel that we need to fix the Democrats or the Republicans. I'm not a fixer of the Democrats or Republicans. I'm not. I believe that if you beat up your old lady and you abuse her, that you need to be fixed, but you don't need to be in power of the house while you're being fixed. You need to go get some help psychologically. And the position I'm in, I got cussed out this week. I got cussed out because I don't believe in fixing the Democrats or the Republicans. I don't believe in that. I believe that if you were mentally ill, where you would beat up people in Mali or Haiti or America or any of these places, that you need psychological help. You need to go get help. Your model is based on abuse. Your model is based on shutting up in financial warfare of your wife, your spouse, the people that you're supposed to love. So I'm not, and so I got cussed out. I got cussed out. The guy wanted to fight me, man. I was watching, I was watching good brother Peter Joseph was on Jimmy Dore. And he's another one who talks about greed and corporations and how that kind of sent us down this avenue. I was just basically saying that, you know what? We need to listen to people like this. We need to listen to people who have been thinking about this for decades. This is only new to me. I've only started thinking about like the real effects of taking our predatory instinct and applying it to a monetary model and ripping apart somebody else's flesh with the monetary system. I've only started thinking about this stuff, but Peter Joseph, he's been thinking about this stuff for decades. And so the guy cussed me out. He said, "Oh, you're a fake liberal and you're this and that and whatever, and your mama." And, he cussed me out, man. And I just sat back and said, you know what? I said, brother, we really don't have anything to talk about. We don't, come on, let's go on each other's shows and let's fight. Man, bro, I have nothing to fight about with you because number one, I never said I was liberal to begin with. And number two, I liked Bernie. I don't know that I would have voted for Bernie, but I like Bernie. I like a lot of what he had to say. There were some things Trump said I liked too. But my point is that you're cheering a political party that uses violence as a solution. We don't have anything really to talk about. There's dialogue and we can talk, but you obviously got this aggression thing happening and you can start cussing me out. I view that a little differently than most people do. That goes backward. But I was raised that, when you start cussing at somebody, it means because there's really nothing to talk about. There's no dialogue. And when there's nothing else to talk about, that's when we're supposed to ride. We're supposed to get on the bus. We're supposed to ride the bus. So I don't deal with people like that because my interest is in solutions. It's not in the fight. And if your political party still believes in violence solves problems, I don't think that we're going to end up in a solution. I think we're just going to end up
debating,
locked up,
arguing,
locked up where you're still agreeing that it's a good idea to go bomb people and take something from them. It's a good idea to shoot children that are running at a border and you got people living in their country across the border. Like, I don't have interest in violent solutions. I think we evolved out of that. Some of us did, maybe this is it. Maybe
this is it right now.
Maybe some of us are evolving to become sentient, and others are still lost in those caveman Cro-Magnon days of beating people up and taking what they have. Are some of us evolving and others of us not?
That is kind of true to what's happening. I guess it was written, though. It was written for it to happen like this. I don't know if it was written in nature or whatever, but it's about like the way that we all, I guess, experience life. It's like life education has a little bit to do with the system of how they educate us in terms of how people progress slower and faster than others. You know what I'm saying? Everybody doesn't evolve in terms of life education as fast as others do. And if you have certain, like, you know how they do the test, you got 10 people that go through domestic abuse. If I can, 10 women go through domestic abuse, the same exact type. Maybe 6 women will leave faster than the other 4. Maybe 4 women will leave faster than the other 6. Or maybe 2 women will leave faster than the other 8. You understand what I'm saying? And this is not something that is a bad thing, I guess you would say, but it shows us the way that people evolve, the maybe what people can bear, or maybe how fast people can understand and process what's going on. Is this something that is good for me? Can I get out? Do I trust myself to get out? And we're all built differently. You know, we're all built uniquely different, but the things we deal with in the system, we're on different levels. You know, because some people went through what I went through and are still stuck in the systematic way of thinking and have yet to evolve or see that they need to evolve. You understand what I'm saying? But the way that, I don't know, maybe my mind thinks to where it's like, I see what's going on and I can't accept the corrupt nature of it, the deceptive nature of it, and then see a mass of my people suffering. Maybe others don't think that the mass of people that are suffering are actually their family members. The mass of children that are suffering are actually their sons and daughters as well. But that's how I really think. And I get heavy criticism from even my own son's mother, you know, because I was like, I love my son dearly. And it's like, it's not that I love any other children differently, but it's like the way that I love my son, if I guess he wasn't of my blood, I guess that's the way that I love every other child, you know, because when I'm interacting with children, I ain't got no picks with the kids. I'm trying to make sure they all learning and I'm giving them all something while I'm around. You know what I'm saying? And right. I'm treating them almost just like I'm treating my son, joyful, but not where I'm like teaching them anything, because I could teach my son whatever. You can't teach these kids out here whatever because their parents are offended, you know? So if you're trying to teach the kids truth, their parents don't want their children to know truth. So you have to be careful about how you're teaching other people's kids. But I view other people's kids just like they were mine. You understand what I'm saying? So it's like, I feel sorry for a lot of the children out there because there's millions and millions suffering, millions and millions suffering because their parents may not know and their parents may know but don't care. You know, a lot of parents know but don't care because the cold-heartedness of what American society is creates that within us. The lack of compassion, the lack of empathy for those suffering. Because I don't know if we've been turned into cannibals or I don't know what you call it, like individuals who we're predators, but we don't have to be. You know, we don't have to be predators, but we're acting as if that's in our nature. That's not in our nature. That was built within our nature. That was created within us. We were created to be predators from the standards of what a group of men thought would be good for this society. They thought it would be good if we were predators instead of, you know, patiently compassionate beings, you know, because that's what we were at a time in times past. We were passionate and we were compassionate, but very patient with each other. You know, they weren't settled disputes. And see, everything is distorted from American logic. People really think other civilizations were never civilized. People think other civilizations, just because they didn't have technological advancement, that they didn't live wonderfully and beautifully and together. People only think in line with how American institutions taught us. Oh, American started the birth of civilization. people were never civilized until America came around, or the Europeans came around, or the Roman. The civilizations became, we're preached so that the hero worship you were talking about much earlier on, it's really behind the scenes, the flag in America. The hero is America. The hero is the flag. We have been told to worship an entity that is truly our enemy. And it's scary to say that because the flag is our enemy. The what America is meant to be is our enemy because it's hypocrisy. It's saying we're supposed to be a land of this free people that can do anything they want, but yet we're not free to do anything we want because we can't even support any groups of people that we want without facing consequences. We can't
let me ask you a question because I don't want you to lose anybody.
All right.
I used to be a patriot. Not sure that I know what that even means anymore. But when people hear you talk bad about America and they're raised in America I pledge allegiance to the flag, America great, Bruce Springsteen, Blue Jeans,
Sweet Home Alabama.
Or Sweet Home Alabama, apple pie, baseball, watching bodies come home and C-130 jets from war. When you start saying negative things about America, you start to lose people. So about the flag. So let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
Is it our flag? Like and I'm not saying it, people look at me and they still call me black. That's offensive, by the way. Don't ever call me that. Don't call me African American. Don't call me a black.
I'm not black,
person of color. I'm a person. When you take away the solar radiation, this is my skin color right there.
Right.
You want to know what color you are? Look at the bottom of your feet.
Your palm looks like your palm.
Right, exactly. Next time you want to get in a fight with somebody about something, racism or something, go look at the bottom of their feet and the bottom of your feet. And that is the color of your skin.
Your teeth white too. Your teeth white too. Your teeth white. You got white teeth, brother? No, you don't. Why you got white teeth too? You got white teeth?
The little silly sun racism, but the thing I'm wondering when you're talking, because I don't want you to lose anybody in the depth of what you're saying, that what you're saying is the flag isn't really our flag, that the flag was put down by a 0.01%, or I think back then they were maybe 1%.
Yeah, they're much more back then.
Who ruled the world, and they killed everybody's families, everybody, every race, color, creed, everybody was put into forced labor, slavery, murdered, lands taken, destroyed, everybody. So what Chris is saying, if you're a patriot, Bruce Springsteen, raised in America, he's saying that the flag is not our flag. He's saying that the flag flies to keep us fighting with other people and keep us fighting from within. So it's not a hatred of the flag, but he's saying that it's not our flag to begin with.
Not our flag. It's not our flag. I ain't hating. I'm just saying it's not yours. You claim we raised the flag. We're told to salute the flag, but it wasn't our flag. It's the flag for the 0.1% only. What it was to create all these states. Think about it. The states, the flag got stars as they stole states. They didn't buy they didn't buy the states. They didn't sit down and bargain to purchase these states. They didn't. The 13 original colonies that we're indoctrinated people. It's all good, but listen, the 13 original colonies, they didn't purchase these colonies from the natives. They stole the colonies. They came years prior, scouted lands, did business dealings, whatever, and then they had a plan. They devised a plan because guess what? They communicated together. They weren't divided in their wants and desires. Okay, They weren't divided in the wants. They desired new land. They desired new operations outside of the European, British rule, Roman rule, and they had a plan. They sat down and said, "Look, we can go to these new lands and create our own destiny." And that's exactly what they did because they were together almost the entire way. Now they faced pushback from different, countries over the mainland of Europe when they got a whiff of what was going on. They say, "Wait, what's going on? No, send troops over. We didn't know that was going to happen." Well, we're going to fight because we want peace in that land too.
Yeah.
But they didn't fight to make this land for the people. They fought to make this land for them. The 13 original colonies, they didn't represent all people, because all people, like the natives that were here and the blacks that were slaves and maybe the whites that might have been slaves, were not represented by
let's not do it, Mike.
Flags. You know, those
hang on, brother. Let's not do it, Mike. Let's not do it, Mike. Let's keep it real and dirty, ugly as it is.
Crazy, man.
There
Crazy.
were white slaves.
White people were slaves. They was poor. They was poor and white.
They were poor, and I want to clarify a couple things. Because I again, the depth of what you're saying, I don't want anyone to lose the power of what you are saying. Yeah. When Chris is saying they, none of them are alive today. Yeah, they are all gone. Nobody who's watching this is a they. These are people who are all, now their ancestors are still here, that 0.01%, and they handed down what they murdered from when they took the poor whites' money. They the poor blacks and everybody's money, and so they handed that money down. But and they also they didn't steal the land. They murdered, they raped, they killed, they eviscerated. They came up with names like Redskin and what it meant. They sold scalps. They were the most vicious, unethical, immoral, horrible. Now, mind you, back then we were a rough people too. You know, so they were rough times. But you know, I think we need to stay focused on that. And so also when we talk about the white slaves, which I talk about, because I don't care what anybody thinks. I like history. I don't care anybody get mad at me. I talk about the Irish slaves, and this is where I like to put it, because the first debate always comes back. There were no white slaves. And I say, okay, well, they were indentured servants. Okay. So what happened with the kidnap laws in England was that Ireland was invaded. The Irish kids, they lived on the streets. I don't know how they got to Britain, but they were poor Irish kids on the streets of Ireland. Like, bam. Like right they were right there. And they were being oppressed. They were the slaves. They were just, most of the men were killed. The women were raped. It was the church that did it. So if you think, you know, it had anything to do with Protestants and Catholics, it was
the damn church.
And so, but it left a lot of parentless kids. And so the king came up with the kidnap law. And the kidnap law said that you can grab up any kid off the street, which were all white kids, and you can put them on boats, because they were British and they were Irish. They didn't discriminate. When you come up with these laws and you say, we'll give you money for taking kids off the street and sending them to America to work, they don't care what kids they grab. They're going to grab them. It's like the same thing when the Clintons did the Welfare Reform Act and they gave billions of dollars to foster care to take children from families. They didn't care what kids they took. They mostly took the kids of the poor, but they went across all communities. And so it's just human trafficking. But the point was that, so if you were an 8-year-old little girl, an 8-year-old little Irish girl on the streets of Britain, and you were grabbed by some grown men, put on a boat to be sent to America, can you just process and think about the Weinsteins today? Process and think about the Bill Cosby, process and think about Pizzagate, process and think about the UK government and their involvement with sex trafficking. Process and think about how many really, really pedophilic psychopaths who are actually in our world that we have no idea they're actually there. Think about how evolved we are today versus how de-evolved we were back in the 16th century when this actually happened. And so you tell me, when an Irish man or woman gets offended when you say there were no white slaves, this is why they get offended. Because if you were an 8-year-old little girl and you were put on a boat with grown men and you had nobody looking out for you, 9 times out of 10, you probably didn't actually make it to the coast. You were raped. Until you were no good and you were thrown off the boat to the sharks. That's number one. That person was not an indentured slave. Indentured servant, that person was a pure slave. They were born, they lived in poverty, they were raped and destroyed on the boat, and they were thrown. They lived their entire life as a slave. Now, if you made it to America, and you think about how the slaves in America were actually treated, how many of those indentured servants do you think actually made it? You know, with the way they played with the indentured servants contracts, with the way they were treated, with how many who actually died in slavery. So the problem with those statements is they're divisive. It's because I want people to, only my people were slaves. And that's not how these colonizers work. So when Chris is talking about they, he's first of all talking about people who don't live today. And when he's saying the flag isn't your flag, he's saying most of us all came from people who were enslaved. He's saying that we all have the same things in common. We all have the same groups that are preying upon us. Now, mind you, I'm not one to look up and say, well, but we got to kill the billionaires and take what they got. No, we don't. The other thing that's being said is that we actually have automation now. We have the ability to take care of everybody where nobody's taxes have to go up. We have corporations with billions of dollars that can be taxed to pay for the damage of what all of these slaves died for, of all races and ethnicities, all the people whose lands were taken that ended up in those bank accounts that those people are born into today. That wealth doesn't have to be taken. We have the ability to use very little of the wealth to automate and make sure that every child on this planet has a house, every child has an education, every child has food and water. We can fix this. And but Chris, this is why the guy cussed me out.
All right.
This is why he cussed me out, because it's an actual solution. People like Peter Joseph and the Zeitgeist movement, and even the Venus Project and the Ubuntu communities, where they're talking about collectivism and people working together. These are real solutions. These are solutions that have been worked out. We can fix the world. And I think this is why we have all of the censoring that's happening all over social media in the world today, because people are actually starting to realize there are solutions, and the people in power will lose their power if you start to hear about the solutions. That's why the right wants to rally hard with its base. The left wants to rally hard with its base. In Paris, they want you to rally hard against the immigrants. The immigrants, they want you to rally hard against this. And it's all the same people who are keeping everybody locked into different levels of forced labor and slavery that are refusing to give up their retirement and their comfy lifestyles. That's holding this whole, propping the whole system up. Somebody asked about voting, Chris. What do you think about voting?
Me? I'm not one about, that's more division, really, honestly. I'm with voting if it's about policies and strictly policies and things of that nature, like locally, you know, people are voting on certain policies and whatever, and I support those types of things, you know what I mean? Because that's where you can be most, if at all, effective, you know what I mean? But honestly, voting is but so much effective in this system of corrupt government, because all you're doing is trying to, you know, convince good or supposedly good people and well-intentioned individuals to spend all their energies and time and resources in trying to change what government is going to do. And this is something that's not no guarantee. You know, individual actions are guaranteed because you're taking your behind and going and doing something that is contrary to the status quo or the mainstream. You're not going to support those 1% corporations. Like we said earlier, you're going to go support the lowly and independent businesses every day, every chance you get. That's voting. Voting isn't saying, oh, I voted for my politician and it's my politician, which was a Democrat, because I had to vote against the Republican. Every time you're voting against something. Right. If you're voting against somebody, you're not vote. That's not voting. Okay, vote. You're supposed to be voting for something, not against something. If you had to vote against something, that's division. You know, we don't need division. We need unity. We need to be voting for causes that are for the people. We don't need to be voting for people that are saying they're for the people to go into the system that is not operating for the people. We need a system that is operating for the people. We won't get that system in American government because, like you said, they are working with their partners around the world to continue to suppress the voices of the people, to continue to suppress the operations, as you mentioned, that are trying to give back and are on the ground trying to change the narrative. They're suppressing their voices by spending unlimited amounts of money to surround them by silence. That's what they do. They spend, that's why you have all these debates about healthcare, because the unlimited amounts of money that they're spending to keep the narrative along the lines that they want us to believe that we have to rely on the corporations for our healthcare system. We can't get out of that. You're not going to get out of that because the corporations have control of the politicians. How are you going to get control of the politicians? Show the politicians that you don't need them. That's how you get control. Show them that you don't need them, because you're going to support the people and you're going to support the causes by spending your money in the right way, by using your energy and your resources in the right way, by connecting with groups and people that are trying to help humanity, not trying to fix a broken political structure that was built on death, destruction, enslavement, disenfranchisement, miseducate. Like, they've been miseducating people for years, politically especially. And what they've done was just create an era of confusion. So now we're confused because we don't know what to believe, or many people don't know what to believe when the information is right there in front of their faces. So that's what we have right now. We're suffering from confusion. So people think they have to vote, you know, and if you do vote, it's not going to change anything. If you don't vote, guess what? It's not going to not change anything. People are like, oh, if you don't vote, you're part of the problem because you're not going to help the system change, and the system is what we need to save. But the system was built on hate. The flag was propped up in hate. It wasn't propped up for patriots, not patriots. It wasn't propped up to make you feel great about yourself. It was propped up to make you support the hate that they were taking out around the world. So now what we have to do, on someone else. And that's what they want you to do. Take your hate out on someone else. Don't look within and seek the love and let it shine up out of you. Let the hate flow up out of you, because we taught you well. We've showed you how to do. They showed us how to do it. They showed us exactly how to do it. Hollywood, the government's actions, it doesn't matter. Don't care about them people, just as long as you're patting our pocket. As long as America's getting rich, don't worry about what's happening in other countries. That's how the government teaches us. We're getting rich. We're getting all this money, and we got the oil, we got the gas, we got all these resources, but we stole these resources. Don't worry about that, y'all. Don't worry about it. We stole it. We got the resources. We're getting rich. You should get rich too. Don't worry about the poor people. Get rich. Just make sure you get rich. Don't worry about other people. They told us exactly. They gave us the blueprint on how to live savage. You know, we're living in the savage society because we've been raised by savages. You know, I'm not saying our parents, but I'm saying just the entirety of people. We've been raised by savages. This system is savage. But I gotta bounce, bro.
Oh, you gotta go,
man. I gotta go, man. I love this talk. I wanted to go some more. I gotta go get some stuff done. You dig? But it was such a great talk because we got a lot of stuff.
Oh man, that was a good talk. That was a good talk too. We got into some delicious stuff, man. We might have to. You got some time tomorrow? We have to finish it up.
Yeah, I think we gotta finish because the voting thing is something that's important. I don't want people
voting's
to feel
important.
Like the voting thing is important because people have to understand it. It's not something that is. I'm not speaking this out of hate because I love people. Okay, this is the thing. Yeah. Do I love people? And do I want to help people?
Yeah.
Can I help people without government? That's an easy question. That's an absolutely yes. Do I need to rely on government to help people? No, absolutely not. I don't have to rely on government to do anything in my life. I can help people without relying on a politician. You can change things without relying on these actors who are going to support. See, this is another thing. You're going to vote for people that are going to support Israel. They're going to bow down to Israel. They're not going to stand up against Palestine because you can't do that in American government, people. But obviously, I don't know. Do people support Palestine? Do people support Yemen? Do people support Libya? Do people support these countries that are the victims of American reign of terror? Or do people support America? So I realize what people really support. That's American military. And they don't support the Palestinians. They support the Israelis because they show them with their actions. Because if you vote, your politician has to support Israel. And we're showing with our actions that we're going to vote for politicians that support Israel at the end of the day. We voted for politicians that supported America's reign in Iraq at the end of the day. We voted for Barack Obama, who supported the Libya situation, the Afghan situation, Pakistan, they spoke as if they wanted to get the troops out for American people benefit, but they were trying to benefit the corporations by getting the troops out, sending the corporations in, and letting them reign terror. Like, it's so sick, man. It's so sick, but I don't know, man. Maybe I have a little bit of different information than a lot of people have, but we have to talk about the voting situation a lot more to clarify it up, you know?
Yeah, Chris, close your ears for a minute, Chris.
What'd you say? Man, no, listen, they would have been got me. I was telling people not to vote. You should have seen me. Like, shout out this lady, my homie. My homie, she's like a homie. She's cool. She's political though. I don't do the political stuff. She understands me though. But I started doing like these live streams on Progressive Independent Party. You feel me?
Yeah,
and I was the only, like a third party thing. And I was talking that no vote stuff. She was letting me run free, like, you know what I mean? I guess she good. She understood, like Raquel, she understood what I was talking about. But I'm like, y'all people got to get y'all wake up. You can't be voting. It's so savage. But they understood. It wasn't out of hate. It was out of logic. Like, do we support humanity or do we support system of operations that are raining terror down on humanity? So that's my number one question right there. But I love y'all.
I was having fun. I knew I could trap you a little bit. I was gonna trap you a little longer, but no. So yeah, we'll finish up tomorrow. We'll finish up with a part two. We'll start off on voting. I think we vote every day, brother. I think that they confused us and they bought the word and they think that voting is for politicians. I think we vote every day. I think we vote in what we like, what we share.
Real talk.
By the way, I appreciate you guys sharing. I appreciate you guys friending us and following us. Subscribing. I think that we vote in what we buy. I think we vote in whether we choose to speak up when the tribalism kicks up and we know we can kind of derail this whole Roseanne ape thing, you know, with some logic. I think that we vote when we listen to the whole Israel-Palestine thing and we think maybe I shouldn't support Palestine or Israel. Maybe I should support people both. Maybe I should support the fact that there are kids born in Israel in a psychotic Zionist setup, and people were born in Palestine in a psychotic Hamas setup. And maybe, you know, we need to support people who are actually behind peace and not picking a side. And so, but I know you got to go, brother. We can get there.
All right, brother G.
We'll start with voting tomorrow. We'll start it. If voting lives matter tomorrow. Appreciate everybody joining.
But that's the thing. Still communicate. Whether you do vote or not, people, don't be offended by my stance of not voting or other stance of not voting. Let's still communicate. But because we have to communicate outside the mainstream narrative. That's the key. Communicating outside of the mainstream and keeping our mind open to solutions that are brought forth by us, the people of a connected mind. You know, so let's just keep that connectivity going. And Brother G, thank you for everybody holding it down.
All right. Thank you, guys. We'll let you get going. Chris, appreciate it. That's why I love you, man. You got a lot of passion. You're a real person. No matter what.
Brother, you too. Keep going. Keep on going strong.
Real people. It's all about find real people and attach to real people. And that's why I knew I could hold you because you're passionate. You're
Evolution and thought. Have a back, y'all. Deprogram. You did.
We will catch you guys. Part 2 tomorrow.